was constantly, what's next? I saw them chain themselves to the gates outside the White House, where another group was on the inside meeting. And the inside-outside game is like, you better deal with us, because they out there, they crazy. Because see, I remember when black folks chained ourselves to the gates.
Well,
I remember when we did that. See, and I don't quite understand, for me, how in the world we had a Parent Plus loan controversy where 15,000 black kids did not come back to HBCUs, and HBCUs had to cut their budgets for the millions of dollars because of the action of the Department of Education under Arnie Duncan, and black folks were silent, and we said, well, it was the black president. You don't give up 15,000 black people. Because you're saying, why are you saying all this? Because I'm saying all of this because the very people who were watching our inaction for the last 8 years now are going to look at us and say, how dare you come asking of me what you didn't ask for the last president? So I'm trying to get us to understand that if we want to be focused in terms of fighting, we're going to have to get serious about doing what we used to do, and that is having to put pressure where pressure has to be applied. Because see, President Lyndon Baines Johnson, he thought that Dr. King was going to kiss his butt on anything he wanted after he signed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, and he was personally offended when Dr. King gave his speech at Riverside Church on April 4th, 1967, called Beyond Vietnam. He said, how dare you do this when I signed those civil rights bills into law? And Dr. King said himself that he actually disobeyed his own consciousness when he would not speak out against the Vietnam. If MLK had the audacity to oppose a president who signed into law the most critical civil rights bills, you tell me how is it that we are unwilling to challenge black mayors, challenge black city council members, challenge ministers, and state governors, state senators, governors, even the president. See, I'm talking about where our history stands in that we have never been in a situation that we have been unwilling to fight somebody for what is right and for what is just, but for some reason we have decided that, well, that's really somebody else's job, when in fact it's not somebody else's. That's right. Because we could not sit where we are today, drive the cars we drive, live in the houses we live in the neighborhoods we live in, wear the clothes we wear, unless we had freedom fighters who were willing to fight for freedom no matter who was in office. That's why I ask the question, what are you prepared to do? Because see, frankly, I'm a little sick and tired of MLK events becoming Negro check-off events. All right. I'm tired of us saying, I'm going to the MLK program, I'm going to take some pictures, I'm going to post them, we're going to put them in the paper, TV's going to show up, radio's going to show up, it was great, wonderful, okay, let me check off my Negro moment, and then go back to regularly scheduled program. See, I don't want to hear somebody talk about, well, we need to remember what Dr. King did. No. What you should be saying is, how is it that what Dr. King did can inspire me today to be a leader? Earlier today, I saw Donald Trump send a tweet out. First of all, he had the audacity to be meeting today. I mean, you know you're bad when you're 70 years old. And you got to meet with Martin Luther King III to talk about Dr. King's legacy. Right. Martin Luther King III, a better brother than me. I would have went to Amazon and sent him a gift card and said, go get some books. Y'all think I'm lying? Y'all, this was the tweet that Trump sent out. But this ain't just Donald Trump. There's other folks in this country, including folks who look like us. Celebrate Martin Luther King Day and all of the many wonderful things that he stood for. Honor him for being the great man that he was. And all of the many wonderful things that he stood for. First of all, I don't know how you have the audacity to send that tweet out when you appoint Jeff Sessions to be folks in here, you probably say Senator Jeff Sessions is a nice guy.
No, it's not at
all. No. There's some folks in here, don't front. I ain't saying nothing right now, but trust me, but it's all good. See, I watched some black folks last week in Washington, D.C. talk about how wonderful he was and how he showed up that day when their daughter had a baby and he came by the hospital. Well, that's all. That's great. But if you're going to stand in the way of voting rights, if you're going to back voter suppression, if you're going to say you voted for the extension of the Voting Rights Act, but then you won't move right now when it comes to replacing the Supreme Court gutted, if you did all of that, I don't want to hear jack. I don't want to hear that you went to Selma.
That's right.
Well, if you went to Selma, Selma clearly did not get into you.
That's right.
See, I'm not impressed by tweets. I'm not impressed by the folks who come every year on the pilgrimage to Selma with Congressman John Lewis. I wasn't impressed in 2015 at the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, and I watched all Republicans who were there, who when they went back to D.C., as they sat there, they were sitting here against the Voting Rights Act in their own state when they were back in the suppression. I don't want to hear that. You said nothing when the governor of Alabama shut down those offices for getting black folks from getting their driver's license to be able to vote. I don't want to hear it if you want to have equal funding for HBCUs in your state and black folks got to fight for the very dollars to fund our institutions. I don't want to hear it if you won't properly deal with our school system that's in 2017 is just as bad as it was with Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. How wonderful you are if you don't stand for full freedom. I simply say, shut the hell up. See, at some point, we got to be willing to fight for what is right. You see, what we do today, we celebrate our civil rights veterans, we celebrate our foot soldiers, we celebrate those people who put it on the line, and the challenge that we have today is, what are we willing to put on the line? What are we willing to fight for? What are we willing to occupy? What are we willing to press? What are we willing to hit? What are we willing to boycott? Because see, do understand, I love it when we have what I call this bobblehead MLK figure in these days. MLK has become a bobblehead that they sit on the mantle and they trot out and somehow say, oh, he was just a nice, wonderful, humble, quiet little man, when in fact, Dr. King was one of the greatest radicals America has ever known. And what we have right now is this fictitious Dr. King.
That's right.
Where folks will sit here and they will quote content of character, but they won't say jack about a check stamp insufficient funds when it was in the same speech.
That's right.
See, they won't talk about when he preached black is people. They won't talk about when he spoke about health care and the need for government health care in America. They won't talk about, say, I love these people who got to be some of the stupidest people in the world, who is just, they are elated that Obamacare is going to get overturned, but they love the Affordable Care Act. Fool is the same thing. So when we begin to look at what we are grappling with in America in 2017, we must come to understand that when you deal with what's happening with white fear, so all of a sudden, man, this world is changing. TV is changing. You got Terry Bradshaw, who has the audacity to say Mike Tomlin, one of the best coaches in the NFL, has the nerve to say he's nothing but a cheerleader. He's the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Amen.
But you call him a cheerleader? Well, the cheerleader kicked Kansas City's butt last night. The cheerleader led his team to 2 Super Bowls. The cheerleader is going to play the Patriots next week to go to a 3rd Super Bowl. Well, hell, if that's what a cheerleader is, I sure hope my Houston Texans will hire a cheerleader. Folks understand what we're seeing in America. America today is we got folks who somehow believe that, and look, the data shows. So when I say white fear, Pew every year does this study, and they ask the question, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? And I remember seeing that poll in 2009. And it was stunning to me that every ethnic group in America was optimistic about the future of America for their children except white America. The survey came out in September, done at the University of Chicago. Are you optimistic about the future of America economically? Y'all, this is unbelievable. The group at the bottom economically, black folks, had the highest optimism about the future of America economically. The group that the second lowest economically had the second highest optimism, Latinos. Yet white Americans, on average, at the top economically, only 41% were optimistic about the future of America economically. Now, you gotta ask yourself, how y'all got money, but you are not optimistic about the future of America economically? That's because you are used to an America where it was only working for you.
That's right. That's right.
When I debated the white supremacist Richard Spencer on TV One, some of y'all saw it, I told him to his face, y'all scared to compete. Because truth be told, you ain't had to compete.
That's right.
Now all of a sudden, they are now watching this influx of black folks, Latinos, who all they heard from their parents, you gotta be twice as good. Black women are going to college more so than anybody else in America. So what's happening all of a sudden, you got folks who are saying, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. They got to compete. And they freak it out because when you got to compete, white privilege ain't all you can depend on. See, ball game is changing. And see, the media is not properly discussing this because all they want to discuss is white working class as if black working class doesn't exist. And so folks don't actually want to deal with this angst, this white fear that, oh my goodness, America is not going to be the country it was for me, for my children. Yes. And that's a good thing. So we have to understand what's going on here. We have to understand the dynamics that are at play here. Because see, what has happened is, folks have played this game, they say, well, oh yeah, that's just the white working class people in Michigan, Wisconsin. No. Trump wants educated white men. He wants educated white women. See, this whole thing, you understand, folks, this ain't even a Republican or Democrat, liberal, conservative thing. This is a tribalism thing.
That's right.
What we are about to deal with, we are about to deal with a battle for the next 30 years.
Right.
I'm trying to tell y'all right now, I need you to prepare yourself for a 30-year battle. Because as we, first of all, 1976, 89% of the electorate in America was white. This year it was 70%. The next presidential election will be the first time the electorate will be under 70% white. What you are seeing, what happened with the girl who sued the University of Texas, Fisher. She wanted to get rid of affirmative action. What happened? Here's a white female, sued the University of Texas. She asserts she could not get into the University of Texas because of black and Latino students. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court. They discovered that there were a number of white students at the University of Texas who had lower grades than she did who got in. she had to come up against that. She thought it was us keeping her out. No, it was some other white folks just like you who were keeping you out. She thought just her little grades were going to get her into school. She didn't think I got to do some community service. I got to do more just to write an essay. She had a limited resume as opposed to somebody else who had lower grades, but had a much more expansive worldview. That's why she didn't get in. She thought it was us, it was them, and that's why she lost. I'm trying to get you to understand what we are dealing with. Thomas Edsel, New York Times, writes a piece a few days after the election where he talked about, we've seen this before, after the Reagan Revolution in 1984 when he trounced Walter Mondale for re-election. All of a sudden they went into various white enclaves, Macomb County, Michigan. They went into Ohio and Pennsylvania and did all of these focus groups with these voters. Do you know what they discovered in 1985? They discovered that you had white voters who said the Democratic Party, they had done too much for black people. These were so-called Reagan Democrats. They saw advancement. I'm watching Morning Joe this year, and I'm watching the election. They were talking about, I'm driving into work, and they're talking about, how tough it's been for these white working class men. They've only seen their wages increase 3% since 1973. And somebody did a study where they said black wages increased 12%. I said, fool, what the hell were we doing before 1973? Our wages were so low, they couldn't help but go up. But I need you to understand how the framing was, oh my goodness, white working class men were having it so tough. The other day, President Obama gave his farewell speech. He said the same thing. We got to understand what they're going through. I'm like, no, we don't. I'm sorry. I disagree with the president. Because the reality is this here. We've watched white men work in unions, get various jobs, especially trade unions, that lock black people out. These are folks who were able to get into trade unions, then be able to get scholarships, send their kids to school, while black laborers could not get in the very same trade unions. So we are looking at saying, oh my God, how tough you have it. When I can look at the very same numbers in inner cities or even rural America and see black folks having just as bad. No, maybe y'all got to do what we've had to do. That is, work twice as hard, do more, go harder. See, if we really want to have this conversation, let's have this conversation. We can understand what we are up against. This thing ain't just about Donald Trump. This is not just about the next election. This is literally about how America is changing before our very eyes, and there are people who cannot handle the America that we are becoming.
That's right.
So I ask the question, what are you prepared to do? See, this is when we have to examine every aspect of our lives and begin to confront what is happening. Not just what are we fighting for politically, what are we fighting for socially, whether we're fighting against police departments, because do understand, you can go back and look at the March on Washington speech. Dr. King talked about police brutality in that very speech. He gave numerous speeches about police brutality. So he was having a conversation then, we have it now. But it also is a discussion we've got to have when it comes to economically what is happening with us, what is happening even with our own institutions. How hard are we willing to fight for and go to the mat for our own institutions? It also means, when do we begin to even change our view, where if you really want to be honest, I told you, I let God do what God does, and all I do is simply provide a message. We also have got to change the view that when we are talking about what is black, even in our own minds, we treat it like it's second class.
All right.
Y'all, let's begin. I told y'all, see, if y'all wanted somebody to give y'all comfort, you should have invited my wife. She could have prayed with you, she could have hugged you, she could have laid hands. God gave her a wonderful spirit of comfort. God gave me a spirit of discomfort. I'm here to make folk uncomfortable. See, the reason I'm saying what I'm saying is because Because, see, I experienced it. I had a brother who hit me up and said, man, when you gonna get you a show? I'm on TV One every day. And the show, the News One now, and Roland Market. He said, no, I'm in a real show. I said, a real show? He said, yeah, like CNN, MSNBC, one of them. I said, brother, do you realize that when Lester Holt comes to D.C., he sits in the exact same chair I sit in? I said, because I do my show from NBC News Channel. Y'all, Friday, when y'all look at it, I ain't gonna be watching it, but if y'all turn to NBC Today Show and you watch them for the inauguration coverage, the studio that they are going to be doing the show from is the studio I will be sitting in tomorrow. It's the same studio. It's the same set. It's the same monitors. It's the same cameras. We see it through the satellite the same way they do. But he thought I did not have a real show because it was on a black network. Wow. And what the brother also did not realize is that there's nobody else black with a show on any network who actually determines everything about their show. Right. Let me tell y'all. Don Lemon don't control his show. He's told what to talk about. I'm not. I pick the guests, the topics, what we focus on, how long we focus on, where I broadcast from. I'm the host and managing editor. I'm laying all that for a reason is because I'm not interested in asking somebody else to cover us, asking somebody else, please, pretty please, can you report on us once out of the month? No, this is why we have to have our own. There's a reason we have to have our own black network. We don't apologize for being black. See, I can talk black the entire hour because I'm talking to black people. This is what I mean when I say we have to have and embrace what is our own, and we have to understand that we are not going to allow somebody else to treat us second class. I don't let anybody talk to me or ignore me and say, well, I'm gonna get to you later. No, you're gonna talk to me first. Some of y'all heard me last week. I had a president Talladega booked on my show, and then they canceled the night before. Wow. And I went on the next day. You don't cancel on me at 8 o'clock the night before. Because you don't cancel on me and go talk to somebody else. No, you come talk to home first, then you go talk to them. Why am I saying that? Because if we're talking about what are we prepared to do, we must have an elevated consciousness of even what's our own. That's right. We must be willing to check anybody, folks on this campus, who will even utter that somehow Tuskegee is not as good as somebody else. That is a state of mind. We cannot allow our kids to hear that we are less than. We cannot allow them to even think that somehow that, well, that school, they have more money, therefore they are better. No, if you allow that to even creep into your consciousness, that will cause you to somehow go through life thinking we are not as good as somebody else. I have witnessed that personally. People came to me and they said, man, you were as black on CNN as you were as a defender. I said, yes, because I'm black. I didn't feel as if I needed to turn a button to go in the other direction because I was on CNN. I said, no, y'all want me, y'all gonna get me. Because first of all, I start every job with the premise, I'm gonna get fired anyway. So you might as well say what you got to say while you're there. It's gonna get worse. Parking lot militant.
Have mercy.
Somebody will talk a lot of trash in a parking lot, but when they go back to the office, they don't say a damn thing. I'm talking about we have to begin to a frame of mind. I was asked a question by somebody, they said, Roland, you love music. And they said, man, I need a song to prepare for this new president and this new administration. And I said, very simple. I said, there's only one song I'm going to play. I said, it ain't going to be a Negro spiritual. I said, it's not going to be a sad song. It ain't going to be anything else. I said, it's going to be Charles Jenkins' War. When you are geared up for a battle, you got to have a warrior's mentality. And what I'm trying to get more about people across this country is that we need to operate as if we are about to go to war. And I'm talking about, when I say go to war, that means you are defending your ground. That means you are defending what is yours. That means that you have a warlike attitude when it comes to HBCUs. You have a warlike attitude when it comes to our black businesses. You have a warlike attitude when it comes to us in corporate America. You have to have a warlike attitude saying, we are not going to go backwards. We are not going to accept what's less than. We are not going to tolerate anybody taking us for granted. We are not going to let anybody in 2017 jack with our right to vote. We are not going to let anybody mess with our communities economically. We are not going to let anybody ignore us when it comes to environmental racism. We are not going to let anybody mess with our health care. We are not going to let anybody mess when it comes to our kids and racial profiling. We simply will not tolerate. If you think this generation is going to kneel down and pray, no, this generation is saying, look you in the eye and say, this means war. We cannot stand here and celebrate MLK and celebrate Fannie Lou Hamer and celebrate Central McClark and celebrate Ralph Abernathy or Hosea Williams or rev.jacque or Andrew Young or any of our leaders. We cannot just say, what did Red Shuttlesworth do? What did Attorney Gray do? What did they all do? We must be willing to say, this generation says, thank you for your service, thank you for your fight, but we got it from now.
What are we prepared to do? Thank you, Brother Roland. Let's give another to you. Inspired by those remarks, and on behalf of Tuskegee University, we now want to have a special presentation from Mr. Martin, Jamila Rice, Junior Political Science major, and Jonathan Portland, Junior English major.
Good afternoon, Mr. Martin. On behalf of the faculty, staff, students, and friends of Tuskegee University, we would like to thank you so much for all that you have shared with us today in our university commemoration of the life and service of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Lyceum.
Mr. Martin, we present you the gift of appreciation, including the framed photograph of the Lifting the Veil of Ignorance monument, which has stood on our campus since 1922, as a reminder of the legacy of our first principal and founding president, Booker T. Washington. In addition, there are other items which represent both the tradition and trajectory of Tuskegee University, which we go on to control.
We have a special treat, and Mr. Edward Brown, if you could help us with this. Mr. Martin is willing to take some Q&A. We don't currently have the mic set up, but what we want to do, if possible, is to maybe take 2 to 3 questions. Maybe those questions can be communicated to Mr. Brown or, I'm sorry, or if you can yell out. And so if there are questions, we can field those now, and Mr. Martin will be willing to take maybe 2 or 3 if you have some. And I see the sister here, and why don't you just stand up and yell at us.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Martin, how you doing?
Hey.
My name is Imani Abdullah. I'm a sophomore nursing major from Kansas City, Missouri. And you talked about how the black community didn't demand things from President Obama. There's an unpopular opinion out there that President Obama was not as great as a president to his people that he's proclaimed to be. What are your opinions on that?
Well, first of all, the question she asked was that some people have a view that President Obama was not as focused on issues regarding black folks as others. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, sir.
And we have to look at anybody based upon issues. I read Ta-Nehisi's piece, 17,000 words, and virtually the whole piece was about how he made us feel. That's great. I already feel great being black. I don't look to a politician to make me feel good. I look to what are your policies. The reality is this year, March 14th,